Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining National Park Partners as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Rita Vital Memorial Moccasin Bend Lecture Series. Since 2006, our series has been generously underwritten by Greg Vital, longtime board member of the Friends of Moccasin Bend and now National Park Partners, and a state representative of Tennessee's District 29. Our speakers this evening include former Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park Superintendent Ann Belkov and the Mayor of the City of Chattanooga, Tim Kelly. Superintendent Belkov will discuss how engagement between the National Park Service and the community led to the formation of the Friends of Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park in 1986, and will share her insights of the many accomplishments resulting from this public-private partnership. She and Mayor Kelly will discuss the tremendous potential that comes from Chattanooga being recognized internationally as a national park city and ways our community can benefit from this designation. Please welcome Ann Belkov and Tim Kelly.
Well, thank you, Tricia, and everybody for being here. And thanks especially for the opportunity to meet Ann and welcome Ann back to Chattanooga. I was just a high school student when you were here. I remember the female superintendent, and she was just telling me about her failed attempts to buy a Cadillac back in the days when you know.
They didn't think I could afford it.
Right,
so I went and bought a BMW.
Yeah.
True story.
That's why I was brought back to run the dealerships to try to change the culture, which I've now got quite a bit of experience in doing. But we're excited to talk to you all about our journey to become, how we became a national park city. Brad Bennett, is Brad here? Yeah. Anyway, we've got a whole host of luminaries here, including Mayor Littlefield. Thank you, sir. Great to see you. And he sent me a nice little note, a note to himself about Ann's tenure here. And again, it was very much, from what I gathered, more of a man's world at that point. And I'm sure we'll hear more about this, but boy, it was, I'm sure, quite,
challenging.
Quite a challenge, yes. So briefly, we have a pretty structured, just to give you an idea of the run of show here, pretty structured program. We're going to watch a short video, I think, Brian, right? Yep, about the National Park City. And then I've got a little history to share, and then we'll get into Q&A. I think that's what most people want to hear anyway. So without further ado, the video, please.
When people think of U.S. cities that are most likely to build a thriving community that promotes the health and happiness of all its citizens, Chattanooga, Tennessee probably doesn't come to mind, assuming you've even heard of it. Chattanooga is a stunning little city that sits along the Tennessee River. It's surrounded by mountains, trees, and bridges with unique architecture and plenty of nods to our railroad roots. But our history hasn't always been so pretty. Maybe you guessed from the name, but Chattanooga is a Native American word, and this was once Native American land. Today, our downtown marks the beginning of the Trail of Tears, which was the forced removal of the Cherokee tribes at Ross's Landing. This southern city was also where several of the bloodiest Civil War battles were fought, and where racism continued to thrive long after the war. While it was our trains and railroads that officially put Chattanooga on the map and gave everyone something to sing about, it wasn't long before the heavy emissions from manufacturing resulted in Chattanooga being named the dirtiest city in America. But the thing about Chattanooga is we've never tried to hide from our past. We've chosen to stare it in the face and then begin to do the work to heal it. A city that once suppressed the rights of citizens today has an elected city council represented by a majority of women and people of color. And some of the most painful parts of our past we've chosen to publicly honor and memorialize. We've gone from taking land away to preserving thousands of acres of natural forest and giving it back to the public with hundreds of miles of trails within 10 miles of downtown. The once dirtiest city in America is now America's first national park city, recognized for being one of the cleanest and greenest. And that's why Chattanooga, the city you'd least expect, may have the very best shot at being the city that can show the rest of the world how it's done.
All right, yeah. So we're pretty proud of that. Again, a lot of this sprang out of early conversations that I had with Scott Martin, who was our superintendent at the time. And my realization that really our outdoor assets here are the thing that makes Chattanooga extraordinary. When I first heard about the concept of the National Park City, I thought, well, that's us. It's already us. I mean, it wasn't something we aspired to. It was something that we needed to bring them here to witness, and that's exactly what happened. I think they let us in record time. Thanks largely to the hard work of Brian Smith. April was not yet here, but stand up, you guys, and be recognized, because you guys did all of the heavy lifting. Yep. So, I mean, for those of you who may not know, it really is a vision and a community-wide effort to make urban areas greener, healthier, more connected to nature. The movement was conceived by a guy named Daniel Raven Ellison, who was a member of the National Geographic Society, who wanted to challenge the idea that you had to leave cities to enjoy nature. And again, Chattanooga is a classic example of a place where you don't have to do that. A core feature is the widespread commitment to ensuring people, culture, and nature work together to provide a better foundation for life. Ultimately, it is about people more than it's about nature. So, you know, for those of you that don't know, and again, this is I got a little bit of history here. I'm going to try to move through it fast because I know you want to hear from Ann first and foremost. But we in the city of Chattanooga have more than 100 parks, preserves, green spaces, totaling about 8,000 acres under the leadership of April Firth. Chattanooga's commitment to parks began with the opening of Eastlake Park in 1896, which I did not know until today. And recently, under Mayor Burke's administration, it was redone. It's really great if you haven't been down and seen it. Hamilton County began setting aside park space when TVA gave the land for Chester Frost Park on Chickamauga Lake in the 1950s. And Hamilton County alone has now more than 3,000 acres of park space. And that's, you know, outdoor space, as defined by us, with trees and plants where people can just relax and play. And to that, of course, we can add the National Park Service's more than 9,000 acres. The Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park was established by Congress in 1890, not, of course, as a recreational park, but to serve as a symbol of national reunion, preserving and commemorating the Civil War battles of Chickamauga and Chattanooga, but also serving as a site for historical education and military study. Together, however, the city and the county and the national park, and this is the headline, create more than 20,000 acres of tree canopy and green space in our area, which is nothing short of remarkable. And that is why it's so easy to think of us as a city existing inside a park. So Yosemite and Yellowstone were designed as national parks, or is it Yosemite? I can't remember how I'm supposed to pronounce that these days. I'm kidding. That's a joke. But the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park was the original, the first historic park. The battlefield preservation began with a movement among the veterans of both sides to memorialize more than 34,000 casualties and preserve the battlefield for future study at Chickamauga. Although the veterans actually wanted 10,000 acres to cover all the area where the fighting took place, Congress eventually set aside about 5,000 for the battlefield, with an additional 100 on Lookout Mountain. Later, with the gift of Lookout Mountain acres from Adolph Ox, we were incredibly fortunate to add the total of 3,000 acres of the Lookout Mountain area, along with Orchard Knob, Signal Point, Sherman Reservation, Missionary Ridge, and other sites. In 2003, Congress expanded the national park by adding 750 acres with the creation of the Moccasin Bend National Archaeological District for the purpose of preserving and interpreting the complex and layered history of human activity on this peninsula in Chattanooga, which we are very much looking forward to removing the hospital from soon and making into, yes. And although many of the veterans of both sides of the Civil War had come together to create a park that could tell the story for the campaign of Chattanooga, General Henry Boynton's leadership was significant. The veterans established a park commission and erected hundreds of cast iron tablets marking locations of soldiers during the battles, which, of course, if you've been here for any time, you are just a fixture in Chattanooga. Then they began to raise money for the formal park dedication that was held in 1895 with more than 40,000 people in attendance. I've actually been through the old newspapers, and it is nothing short of remarkable if you ever get a chance to do that. Reading about that. Actually, Chattanooga Brewing Company, which still exists here in Chattanooga, was the sponsor of that. They needed vast quantities of beer to keep everybody happy, and they provided that. As many of you know, originally the battlefield was administered by the War Department under the operation of the Army, the colonel in charge, and you can still see the colonel's house today that sits across from the present-day Visitor Center. That supervision by the Army continued as soldiers were trained for the Spanish-American War and World War I. I actually had my great-grandfather was stationed there. It was not until after the National Park Service was established in 1916 that care was taken over in 1933 by the Park Service, and the familiar building with columns that sits on Lafayette Road was built in 1936 as an administration center. At the end of World War II, Fort Oglethorpe as a military training base was closed, of course, and the former property evolved into its own city and community. The battlefield was preserved. Visitors came. The centennial of the Civil War was marked in 1965 as we celebrated the preservation of our representative government. The nation celebrated its bicentennial, and a concert by the Chattanooga Symphony was held at Wilder Tower in 1976. I remember that as a child, with picnics spread all over the hillside and fireworks after sunset. And that was the first and only such concert until 1979, which was when our esteemed guest, I suppose, joined us, right? The long line of quiet gentlemen who'd been caretakers of the battlefield was interrupted by the arrival of our first female superintendent, Ann Belkov. Now, that brings us almost to the present, or at least to Ann's arrival in Chattanooga. So let's talk about what it was like 46 years ago. 46 years ago. Yeah, when Ann Belkov came to Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. So let's talk about how you got here. So tell us a bit about your background, where you're from, what you were doing before you got here, and how you became involved in the National Park Service.
I'm going to make that very quick because I don't want anybody to fall asleep.
I don't think that's going to happen. They would have done that by now.
I'm from Washington, D.C., raised right in the city. I worked for the Department of Recreation in D.C. for 9 years. I went overseas during the Vietnam War and worked as a civilian for the Air Force in Okinawa. When I came back unemployed, the Park Service was getting involved in urban recreation in D.C. It was after the riots. And they wanted to bring people back into the parks. All the circles and squares when you're in D.C. that you get lost driving around, they all are national park land. That's all parkland. And we have several national parks around the area. And Rock Creek is a national park where the zoo is, which most people don't realize. So I put together programs, day camps, overnight camps, resident camps, one-day fun trips. We took kids to the White House where they served cookies on silver trays in the Rose Garden. And these were all inner-city kids. We transported 5,000 children a week to camp. And it was hugely successful in getting people to use the parks again. I'm going to make this very quick. From there, I went to Golden Gate National Recreation Area, which was a brand new national park in San Francisco, to open that park. When we got there, there must have been 24 employees, and now there's a cast of thousands because the entire San Francisco waterfront almost is national park land. When you go over to San Francisco, over the Golden Gate Bridge, all the open land you see, the Marin Headlands, that's all national park land. And this was military land that was closed and given to the Park Service. So when I went there again, how do we get people to use the park? I thought, well, let's build some camps, get the kids come, which they did. But the best camp was at Baker Beach, which was an old fortress. They used to store poison gas there. That was all cleaned up. It was on the beach. And I had a senior citizen camp there. You had to be 60 years old to go to camp, and we had 100 seniors a week go to camp. They loved it so much that some of them would cheat and get a ride and sneak in for another week. So, and we also opened Alcatraz in 1973. So I spent time there, and then I went to Washington to help open, did a lot of openings, the National Visitor Center in Union Station. And I don't know if any of you went there then. There was a big hole in the floor, and they had a big video going of things to do in Washington. And the San Francisco Boys Choir, bless the Rangers that worked there. They had to listen to the San Francisco Boys Choir sing the national anthem every hour. That's tough duty. But, I mean, they sang great, but all day long. The visitor center wasn't a huge success because Union Station was really too big for it. If they had just used the front and not the back part, it would have worked, but they took over the whole thing. But while I was there, I had an opportunity to compete in the Department of Interior Departmental Management Program. I competed in the program, and you had to take a test and be interviewed and all this stuff, and I was selected. So I spent 1 year in the Departmental Management Program, and during that year you worked in different agencies. I worked on the Outer Continental Shelf Oil Leasing Program. I worked on the Native Alaska Act, and I worked on Capitol Hill for 3 months with the Appropriations Committee. I never got pinched.
Tragic.
I thought maybe something wrong. But anyhow, I worked up there, and that was quite an experience. And then I thought, you know, I'm very familiar with U.S. Park Police, but I'm not really familiar with the law enforcement rangers because I'm been in urban places. So I went to Yosemite for 3 weeks. I walked into the ranger's office, and they expected me. They had 5 supervisory rangers there. I walked in, they handed me a broom. They said, isn't that what you're here for, to clean the floor? Because there weren't many women, hardly any at all, actually. And I did go on patrol with them. I went on backcountry in the snowmobile. I went on a search and rescue in the Muir Trail, which was sort of funny because you hiked up the trail, and they went and rescued, and as they were coming down, I was still hiking up. So, but I learned a lot about law enforcement and park rangers. Also, while I was in the program, I went to the Federal Law Enforcement Academy, which was a wonderful experience and really helped me along the way. After I'm talking very fast so I can get to a lot of stuff, after I finished the program, I really wanted to stay in Interior and be head of special populations, make national parks accessible to handicapped people. But then after going to Yosemite and some of the other things, I walked into the director's office and said, I've changed my mind. I think I'd like to be a superintendent. And he said, great, that's what we want you to be. And they offered me Mount Rainier. And I said, what? I said, what am I going to do as a single female sitting on top of that mountain? I can't be more than 2 miles from a department store. So I turned it down. And then they offered me Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Park. And I checked it out. I have to tell you, I was not very knowledgeable about the Civil War, but I didn't have to be. I had wonderful staff, experts like wonderful Jim Ogden, who's sitting out in the audience. So they taught me about the Civil War, but I knew how to manage. So I went there. When I became superintendent there, I became the highest graded female superintendent in the country and the 7th female superintendent in the country, number 7. So that was, that happened at Chickamauga and Chattanooga. So that's sort of my, and then I'll give you quick. From there, I went to help open in the Jean Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve in New Orleans. Only New Orleans would name a national park after a pirate. So it was 5 national parks with one name and an 18,000-acre preserve. During the time there, I built a Cajun Cultural Center in Eunice, Thibodaux, Lafayette, Environmental Ed Center in the Barataria Preserve, where the alligators are, and bought a building in the French Quarter. If you go there today, that building is a museum and the visitor center. And then from there, I went to, not that I didn't love Chickamauga and Chattanooga, but I really went to a dream job. If anybody said this is where I belong, because I thrive on chaos, I became superintendent of the first woman superintendent of the Statue of Liberty in the Ellis Island Museum. And we opened the Ellis Island Museum in 1990. I was there till 1996 when I retired. And that's sort of the background. But do you have other questions you'd like to ask me?
Well, back to, 1979, I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit about what it was like, to come into that job as only to be the first woman superintendent at Chickamauga, Chattanooga.
Well, it was challenging. The Civil War Roundtable did not want a female superintendent. They called every superintendent colonel. They would not call me colonel. They thought, oh, and I parks for the people. I want people to use the park. And their philosophy was only people who want to study the Civil War should go to the battlefield, and we should preserve it for that. And of course, I ended up having 3 concerts in the park, not just one. And we had one field set aside for recreation, so it wouldn't interrupt the visitors. But the Civil Round Table called me Attila the Hun, which is true. Over the years, it calmed down, but going there as a female was interesting. The Rangers were very, very respectful. The maintenance men were a lot of retired military. They said, "Don't ask us what to do, tell us." And it went on and on. It was really a good experience. I was very different from the previous superintendent, right, who I think had a pickup truck, and I showed up in a 240Z sports car.
That was probably a big help.
With a mink coat.
Yeah. Well,
so, but
you
I
want to talk more about that?
No, we're not going there. PETA might be in the audience. But I lived in the house on the battlefield. That house was built for Colonel Randolph, and he must have been spinning when I moved in. It was a great house. It's a 6,000 square foot house. And I had a lot of wonderful meetings, and I had a Christmas party every year, which some of you probably attended. It was fabulous being there.
So maybe talk a little bit about the visitor experience for the local people. Let's say somebody from Brainerd or somebody from far away from Boston. How was that?
Well, what I experienced there was we didn't have a good way to tell the story of the battle. We had a little slideshow, and we didn't have any exhibits to speak of. The visitor center was not the best place to be, and I thought we needed to build in addition to it. In order to do that, it took a lot of money, and we didn't have any money. I did lots of things to raise money in that park. I once sold picnic benches made out of cement, which we had the molds to. If your family was in the Civil War, you wanted your name on a bench, you could get one for $300, and because we really needed money. So through the concerts in the park, we had an audience of 10,000 people every concert at least. And they loved the park, and they loved the concert, and they learned more about the park. So I decided that it was time to form a friends group. Now, that was not common in the Park Service at that time, and you didn't have to fill out 1 million pieces of paper and get permission. In fact, I never got permission, I just did it. And to form it, I went to first Scotty Probasco and told him that Rhodey Davenport was going to be on the board. Then I went to Rhodey and told him Scotty Probasco was going to be on the board. And then Ruth Holmberg, Zelma Lansford, who helped me so much getting it organized, and a lot of very prestigious do-gooders, movers and shakers in the city became board members. And they did, I left before the visitor center was finished being built, but they did raise millions of dollars to build the addition, which made a big difference because now we have exhibits, we have a movie. One thing I forgot to mention when I first got there, a scary thing was the first time I ever saw the Fuller gun collection, which is the most complete collection of American shoulder arms. And it didn't have a really good security system. I had nightmares at night that somebody's going to break in there and steal the guns. So I did get money to put a good security system in. But that's sort of how the Friends was started. And now the Friends are you guys, the partners, which is, I love it. It's grown to be like it is today. That's fabulous. And they keep contributing.
You are forever in your debt because that we talk a lot in Chattanooga about public-private partnership, and obviously that is a prime example of what that looks like.
Well, I fully believe whatever park you work in, what you give to the community, they're going to give back to you. I think I sat on every board in Chattanooga, from the Symphony to Audubon Acres to convention visitors. But
you didn't have enough to keep you busy.
No, but if you do that, they give back to you, which they really did. So that was very rewarding.
Oh, that is Fantastic. So I understand you spent a lot of time with the maintenance staff because you liked the parties that they had when they.
Yes,
Yeah.
they made, we were union. The maintenance staff was union. Every year they had a picnic and they'd have spare ribs. But they would marinate them for 2 days before and then have a party. They were great. But I did have an experience with the maintenance staff I might want to explain.
Tell us about the day you, apparently there was a carpet roll that was stored in a crate in the maintenance shed.
Yes, there was. My pride and joy. I went into the maintenance yard and I saw this thing. I thought it was a carpet. With one of the maintenance men, and I said, let's look at this carpet. We opened it up, and it wasn't a carpet. It was a painting, a 13 by 30-foot painting, The Battle Above the Clouds. We opened it. It was like a potato chip that you used dipping for dip. That's how crisp it was and curled. So I opened it up, and then I invited some people to come, knowledgeable people, to come and look at it, including who I found through other sources, Terry Houston from the Fort Worth Museum, who was a great conservator, and later on worked on the Gettysburg big mural. Terry came, he looked at it, and I said, what is it going to take to get this fixed? And he said, to get it fixed and install it, first you got to have a place to put it. That was another challenge, but $100,000. Okay, but I couldn't go get $100,000 till I found a place to put it. We had a old house on Lookout Mountain. That was our visitor center. And next to it was a building that was a snack bar. And it was going to be restored and given to us. The National Park Foundation gave it to us. And I was involved in the planning of the building. So I said, there's a big room in the building. I said, the painting might fit in that room if we don't build the back wall, because you got to get the painting in. If the wall's there, the painting's not going to be able to get in the building. So I had them do all the work. Everything was done except one big wall. And then I went to Scotty Probasco, and he helped raise $100,000 for the painting. And then when Perry restored it, and then it was time to deliver it and see if we're going to get it in this room. Now, the painting is 13 by 30. The room is like 13 by 35. So there's not a lot of room to move. They brought it in a great big huge roll, 5-foot big roll. They rolled it down the truck, and I thought, oh my God, it's going to roll right down Lookout Mountain. But we got it in the building. They put a cloth on the floor and put the painting down, face down on the floor, and then they framed it with wood and put pulleys on it. And they pulled the pulleys and pushed it against the wall. Unfortunately, dummy me, who had to be involved in everything, was in back of it. And I'm yelling, stop, I got to get out, or I'm going to be here forever. And it went on the wall. And it's my pride and joy. And I have to say that I'm going to make to the partners a significant donation to be sure that the painting is always preserved, which means the building always has to be preserved. Sometimes buildings don't work as well as paintings, so I worry about the roof or things leaking. So I'm hoping that the partners will be able to match my money and take care of the painting forever. But I have a gift for you, sir, Mr. Vital. The Park Service, for their anniversary, asked for people to write stories for a book. So there are 100 stories in here of the National Park Service. My story is in there about the painting, and a picture of it is young ranger in the front. But I'd like to present you with the book as a gift for all you do. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
So I don't live here anymore, and I've done a lot of other things in my life since I was here, but my heart is still with the Battle Above the Clouds, painting.
Well, that painting has been quite an addition to the visitor experience up there. And I mean, again, 1 million+ visitors every year see it.
Which is wonderful.
Thanks to you. So, again, thank you for your generosity and for your vision. And
My absolute pleasure.
well, you built a great team when you were here. I mean, you couldn't have done all this by yourself.
I didn't,
You
and
haven't?
I meant
Yeah.
to say that at the beginning. None of this would have had happened without my staff. I had the best team who loved each other. They loved working with each other. The division chiefs, like the chief of maintenance and the chief ranger and the chief historian, they're not Indians, they're just called chiefs. They all worked really closely together. When we had budgets, if one needed money, they'd share what they had. We had a unit manager, a fabulous unit manager on Lookout Mountain. And I have to say, a small approximate, at least 7 of them became park superintendents of major parks, Blue Ridge Parkway, Kennesaw, Stone River, a lot of parks. They were great, and they made a difference and made my life easier.
Be very proud. I mean, that's
Very, very
that's
proud.
a-
They
that's
are
a-
my children.
Yeah.
And I still see them or talk to them, and some of them are grandparents now.
Yeah. Well, you've had some amazing, accomplishments. I always like to ask about the dark side. Did you hit any roadblocks or any frustrations?
Well, when I first got to the park, there were 2 messages on my desk, 2 challenges. One was from Ruth Holmberg, which I know many of you here knew and loved, said, "What are you going to do about the kudzu?" I said, "The what?" "The what? The kudzu?" And that was a challenge, and I worked on that. I never succeeded. That was a failure. Yeah. We burned it. We had goats eating it. We had Roundup. We did everything. But the other thing was, what are you going to do about the highway going through the park? That the Department of Transportation in Georgia and some locals wanted it 4-lane through the park. But there had been a plan to go through the park or to go around the park. And I wanted it to go around the park. If it went through the park, it would have destroyed the park. Even with the highway going through it now, then, we had a lot of deer was hit, but we had at least 1 fatality a year. People would speed through there. People used to say, "Is it noisy living in that big house?" I said, "Yeah, the traffic." But it would have really destroyed the park, but it's amazing how many people wanted it 4-laned. So I had continuously met with the Department of Transportation in Georgia. And I'll never forget, I was there with the regional director, my boss, and the head of, and he sat there and banged on the table and said, "If it wasn't for that damn lady, we'd have this road built already." So it came to a head when he went to the Secretary of Interior and asked for a meeting. So we all went. I'm not sure he knew the old lady was going to be there too, but we all went to the meeting in Interior. The Secretary Watt, who was not a great environmentalist and not one of the favorite secretaries of all time, to say the least, but
This would have been during the Reagan administration, if I recall.
well,
correctly.
that wasn't it. He was not much of an environment. Anyhow,
Yeah,
he was a little different. Yeah. Let me say that to be polite.
Yeah.
So we went to his office, and they're giving their spiel about it. They need to do it. It'll help in commerce. It'll help the people in the community. Help the truckers get through quicker. Well, I don't need the truckers going through quicker, and all this. And then I'm listening to them and thinking, that's not the approach I'm going to take, because this man doesn't really care about the monuments or destroying the middle of the park. I'm going to sit. I sat with him. We opened it up, the map, and he and I sat on each end of the table, and I said, "See that road? If it goes through the park, you're going to have another civil war. If you want another civil war across the country, I said, maybe some people, locals will be happy about it, and Mr. Georgia Department of Transportation will be happy, but the rest of the public won't, because there'll be a campaign against it, and you'll have another fight on your hand." Well, Watt had a lot of fights that I knew about,
Yeah.
and I knew he didn't want another one. And he said, the highway will go around the park, and like a child, I applauded and jumped up and down. He must have thought I was absolutely nuts, but that's how the highway ended up around the park, which I'm so happy about.
Well, the painting, yes. Right. I mean, the painting was legacy enough, but if nothing else, I mean, that is an awesome legacy.
And I was fortunate to be here when they cut the ribbon, so tears came to my eyes, so I was really, really happy about it. And, you know, Chickamauga and Chattanooga is the oldest and largest historical park in the country. You need to use that in your publicity.
Yes, you're right.
Because it is. And it's a marvelous, and Lookout Mountain, and all the reservations. You know, used to be a terrible joke. When I lived in Chattanooga in 1979, there were a lot of improvements that could have been made and have been made now. But people used to say, Bragg told his troops not to do anything until he gets back, and they haven't. But now they have, and Chattanooga's great now.
I hadn't heard that one, but it resonates. Well, so you accomplished some amazing things while you're here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more in the time we have remaining. We got about 10 minutes left, but I want to talk a little bit more about, you know, your career post, was it 1988 that you left? Was
Yes,
that? Yeah.
87.
And
87?
so New York City must have been exciting. You know, rubbing elbows with all your international celebrity friends. How different was that from your prior
Oh,
assignment?
well, first I went to Jean Lafitte in New Orleans.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
Where they did not want a woman.
Yeah.
They didn't want a Yankee. I happened to be Jewish. They didn't want one of those either. That was the toughest. I ground down 2 teeth in that job. I was there 3.5 years. I got done what I needed to do, and I guess I did it right because I did go to the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island, which I love. But I love chaos, and 5 million visitors a year, none of which like each other, and all the utilities are in the water, and if something breaks, they pop up, and you have boats coming all day long with 1,000 people on one and 700 on the other one, so it was a challenge, and I loved it. I did meet a lot of people.
Yep. I
had the privilege of taking a wonderful man. Can I quickly tell the story? Do we have time for that?
Sure.
Okay. This visitor, I got a call from the UN saying a visitor would like to come to the Statue of Liberty who had never been there. Could the person come? I said, they told me who it was. I said, yes, of course, but I'll get our own boat. And the person would have no security and no press, just the person and one relative. I'm not going to tell you who because you'd guess who it was. So they...
I think the statute of limitations has expired, but
No.
are you going to tell us who it was eventually?
Of course.
Oh, yes, okay.
Of course, that's the punchline.
Okay.
So what I did was went in our boat and got the person. Oh, and the person needed lunch. And I said, well, all we can give is hot dogs, hamburgers, or French fries and fried chicken. So they said fried chicken. So the person gets off the boat. There's a boat here and a boat here, one from New Jersey and one from New York. The person gets off our boat, and all of a sudden people start applauding and applauding and applauding. And it's like being at a football game. It's just the applause start all over. And we went into my deputy's house, who many of you might remember, Larry Steeler, who was the unit manager at Lookout Mountain, became my deputy at the statue in Ellis Island. He was great, one of the best operations people in the Park Service. So we went in his house, and there we were in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, having French fries and fried chicken out of a cardboard box, just 5 of us, with Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
It was great, but I have to tell you the rest of the story, because we have a little time.
We got a little time.
I take him down the promenade, and I close the statue. People that were in there could finish, but for security, I closed it for a little while. I'm walking down the promenade, and there's a young girl, black girl, crying a lot. So I went over and said to the teacher, is she okay? She said, she's just emotional. I took her hand. The teacher said, where are you going? I said, I think I'll take her in the statue with Mandela and myself. And there I was in a ranger uniform and Mandela with this young girl in the middle of us holding hands going down. And we went through the statue and came back, and the teacher came over, and I think not to get the kid, but to see Mandela.
Yeah.
And I said to the teacher, "Where are you from?" And she told me. I said, "What school did this child go to?" And she told me. This young woman was from Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring, Maryland. I graduated from Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring, Maryland. There were 5,000 people on that island that day, and I picked that kid.
Wow.
Goosebumps.
That is amazing.
That's a story that I keep dear to me. So yes, I was privileged to take a lot of famous people. Lex Lorenzo came also, a lot of famous people, a lot of movie stars, Broadway, politicians.
Fantastic. Yeah. Don't look at me when you say that.
Huh?
Sorry.
Well,
Yeah. Well, look, this one's a little more personal, but in the time we have remaining, maybe can you tell us a little bit about what you would consider to be your greatest personal and/or professional achievement?
My greatest is, after I retired, I met a man. A very tall, handsome, stoic, brilliant, swam, did marathons, wrote, had 4 painting shows, lived in third world countries for 40 years working with underprivileged, and I married him. And we were together for 10 years, and then we got married at age 75. I got married, and unfortunately, 11 months ago, he passed away. I think there's a picture.
Yeah,
of
we're
it.
watching pictures.
That was in AARP magazine.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, of course, it was weird, because I got married at 75, and because of my job and Jerry's job.
Sure.
So if there was any perfect, like, for me, that was it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was my personal achievement.
Well, that leaves the professional side. Anything you're most proud of? You've accomplished a tremendous amount, but I am curious as to what you consider to be your greatest professional achievement.
Thank you, I appreciate the comments very much. And I'm still moving and shaking.
Yeah.
I sit on some boards.
Okay.
I was on the board of the U.S. Park Police Foundation. I helped, was a founding board member for an Atlas Performing Arts Center in D.C. And right now I'm on the board of the 3rd most successful black dance troupe in the country called Step Africa. And they keep me young. They keep me going, and I love them. And coming here today was such an honor and pleasure. I can't thank you enough for inviting me.
Well,
And thank you,
yes. Well, thank you.
both of you.
One more general question that I hope will inspire us. Well, look, shouldn't be too tough. But, from General Boynton, who led the effort to establish the park here, to Alice Davies, who first had the idea to create the Smoky Mountains Park, to John Muir and Robert Johnson in Yosemite, the stories of our national parks are filled with examples of how one dedicated person with a team of dedicated people can make a huge difference. So what do you see as the contemporary challenges? I mean, what would you like to see an army of dedicated people do today?
Well, as far as Chattanooga, I love that you're a national park city. I think that's wonderful, and I think you should use it. There's something that people have to recognize. What is ordinary to you here, you take for granted, is very different to other people. And you have a lot to offer here that other people never see. People still ask me about the Chattanooga Choo Choo. That's when I say I'm coming here. Unfortunately, they don't ask. The first thing's not the park. It's the Chattanooga Choo Choo. And my husband loved coming here and going to the truck wrecking.
The Wrecker Museum?
The tow truck museum. He loved, we spent half a day in the tow truck museum. I have so many pictures of the tow trucks. But that's, you laugh. But
no, people do love it.
That's funny here. But people from all over the country have no idea you have that and would probably love to come here. So I think there's a lot of stuff you can add.
Yes.
Of course, the park is wonderful, but there are things here you can add to economic development and tourism here.
Well, thank you. Well, Ann, you are truly an inspiration for what one person can do for conservation and preservation. It's an honor to have you here tonight, and you give each of us a challenge for what we individually and collectively can accomplish for the future of our parks, especially here in Chattanooga. So thank you for providing such a great example of the value of community involvement. You transform the way that works here, specifically relative to the National Park Partners. And so thanks for all you did and the inspiration you gave us so many years ago, and that you still give us and continue to contribute to our present and future of making Chattanooga National Park
Thank
City.
you very
So
much.
thank you. Let's hear it for you.
Thank you for having me. Sure. I want questions.
If anyone,
You can ask questions.
if
but
anyone has a
nothing personal.
question for Ann or the mayor, Mr. Robbins.
One of my fans is right here, who I've known forever.
Well, one of the reasons I'm your fan is that I understand, and you may not have been directly involved in this, but you talked a Tennessee senator into giving money to some assets in Georgia, and I want to know how you got Senator Jim Sasser to devote money. It may have been a little bit after you left, but I understand from Neil Thomas that money did come from a Tennessee senator, and it crossed the state line there, and some of it went to Georgia. So I was wondering what the magic was for that.
Well, again, if you're nice to people, they'll be nice to you. And Sasser was, and Gore also came here. Both of them came, but I'll never forget when the governor came to play the piano at the concert. And we had a helicopter come down with the piano on the battlefield to deliver it and deliver him. So that was good. Brought people together all the time. We had the Army, the Army War College comes to the battlefield every year still. And that's really fabulous. Yes, ma'am.
Will you ever write a book about your life? Have you done that?
Well, now that you mention it. Many years ago, I took a memoir class, and I did write all about all of what I talked about today, and it sat for 7 years. And recently, I hired an editor to edit what I've written, and it'll have to be re-edited again after that, and I'm not sure it'll ever get published. But yes, I did write. It is in the process. Whether I'll live long enough to be published, that's a question. But thank you for asking. Would you read it? Would you buy it?
So obviously you're coming through and working through a period of time where women dealt with a
whole lot.
of discrimination and antagonism and sabotage of your work. So I'm just curious, you obviously have a really good attitude about it all. What is your philosophy in dealing with that got you through all those challenges?
Well, I think my success was, I grew up on the streets of D.C. I talk to you, a janitor, or the President of the United States the same way. And I think that's been success in putting things together and making it happen. You were talking about being a woman coming here. Also, I had the challenge, I'm Jewish. They never saw a Jew in their life working in the park. And I have to tell you, one person, I'm not going to say the name, said to me, we got everybody here. We have Methodists, we have Presbyterian, we even have a Catholic church. We got everybody but Hebrew. And I said, you got one now.
That's great.
And I did have to deal with some things that were said because people are raised, maybe in certain parts of the country, they don't know any better. And when a person in the staff said to me, can we Jew them down? That was another situation that they had to learn about. Also, you're in a world, the National Park Service was run by the military, and the philosophy of superintendents, male superintendents, was still military. They had a wives' club. When I got there, they didn't know what to do with me. I mean, I didn't have a husband to have tea. So that also was a big challenge, because I go to meetings, and I've been lectured because I didn't agree with this man over here who was a mucky muck. in Washington at a meeting where I'm supposed to give input, and I was lectured to once, said, you can't be so aggressive, you have to be assertive. I mean, I went through that phase, and women do that. And when I went in, I was really one of very few. But the advantage was also, I got to take every Park Service training course they had. Any one I applied to, I was in. I mean, I had been trained in dirty water and clean air, and you name it. I went to training because that was a privilege.
So my quick question here, with the National Park City movement, we challenge citizens of Chattanooga to be involved with some of the organizations like National Park Partners, the Tennessee Aquarium. They're all part of this movement that we're doing. When it comes to the national parks in general, everyone that's in the audience here, I know you encourage us to visit, but what do you challenge us to do for the National Park Service? What do you challenge the next generation to do to help the National Park Service?
To help the National Park Service here or all over the country?
Our greatest gift to the country.
Well, reopen the parks to start with. Sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that, but. And if anybody has a key to Lookout Mountain, I'd like to see the painting tomorrow. That's another challenge.
I'll smuggle you in the back, Ann. We'll make it happen.
I'd like to really talk about here. I think you need to use what you have here. You have a wonderful facility here and wonderful city with everything in the world to offer people to come here. And your challenge is to get people to come to Chattanooga. And the more people you come, you keep saving the park. And the people here need to know that the park has to be saved. Don't climb on the monuments, by the way. When I was here, I cleaned 700 monuments. That was fun. I learned all about that. I didn't do it personally, but yeah.
Well,
But I love the idea of Chattanooga having this designation. It's the only, and you need to advertise, it's the only one in the country.
Western Hemisphere for the time being.
Well, so use it. Use what you got. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. I saw a hand in the back.
We're going.
This is just a personal question. Where was your favorite sunset views? You've worked all these different parks and everywhere.
Same with
Favorite sunset
Sunset views.
My sunset
Watching the sunset.
That's an interesting question. You know what? I was busy working. I didn't have my time for the sunset. And I didn't date a lot when I was here. I did go out with 2 people that lived here for a while. But I didn't really, not a lot of, no, I can't answer that question because I really didn't recognize sunsets too much. I was working a lot. And some of you might remember my dog, Chit Chat. I had a basset hound named Chit Chat, named after the park. And she was in every parade, everything I went to, the dog was with me, and she had a green Park Service sweater with the logo on it. And everybody knew the dog.
Well, I
And
know
was
the
a
name of my
kudzu
next
queen.
dog.
We forgot about the kudzu.
Ah, yes.
Can we mention the kudzu?
Sure.
The second year they had it, I was the kudzu queen, and Scotty Probasco was the cotton ball king. You have that picture? There's the picture right there.
Yeah.
And I rode and my dress was all made out of kudzu. And I have to tell you, my friend, Zelma Lansford, pinned all that kudzu on for me.
That's great.
And that was the mayor of Chattanooga also that rode in the parade.
Yeah, Dalton.
Yeah.
That's right.
You were there then. And the first kudzu queen was Ruth Holmberg. And I'll never forget, she was such a good sport. She wore a T-shirt with 2 fried eggs.
Those are the days.
Those were the days. Well, I'm glad we could leave smiling and laughing.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all. Join us on November 10th for Scott Martin, who will be returning, the former director of or administrator of the Department of Parks and Outdoors during the time Chattanooga became a national park city. He is now at Fort Monroe Authority, which is a national park unit that is co-managed by the City of Hampton, Virginia, the National Park Service, and the nonprofit Conservancy. So it's an interesting model that we're going to learn all about November 10th. Until then, safe travels.